Mr. Rick Hackman was born on November 11, 1963 in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. He has two siblings, which their names are Christopher Hackman and a sister named Danelle Hackman. He grew up on a farm in Myerstown. He did not grow up with his siblings. He grew up with his grandparents. When he was a child, the Vietnam War was going on. He did not remember anything because he was so young. He helped out around the farm along with several other jobs he had growing up. He worked at the Red Barn, the sawmill, and he was a painter and had a few other jobs that he does not remember. His uncle served during the Vietnam War. He enlisted in the war because he wanted to change of pace and to explore the country around him.
He was at Fort Indiantown Gap when he saw the 82nd Airborne Division jump out of planes.
Why did you pick the specific branch you did?
Well, basically it was because of my grades. I wasn't really smart in school, so the Army was willing to take me with the grades I had when I graduated. But that wasn't really the reason. Jumping out of the airplanes is basically an Army thing.
The 82nd Airborne Division is an elite fighting force that is not quite the caliber of the Green Beret, but they're the next step down. The 82nd Airborne Division does a mission and leaves directly after that. It's a lot of grunt work. Mr. Hackman never heard of the 82nd Airborne Division until he went to Fort Indiantown Gap. Mr. Hackman did his basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. In basic training, they got fit and learned how to kill efficiently. The experience was rough, and they learned about responsibility, maturity, discipline, and respect. He stayed at Fort Benning for his special training. He went and did the AIT, Advanced Infantry Training. He also went to jump school at Fort Benning. Then a year or two later, he went back to Fort Benning again. In major school, he did more intense things and went deeper into training.
They have a thing called Hell Week, and it is hell, so it's really tough.
Did you find any of the training hard?
All of it. Yeah, almost 95% of all the training was hard.
Did it get easier at the end?
No, because it's a constant advancement in your schooling and in your physical build-up. It's till the day you graduate, you're still working out, you're just training for everything you need to know.
It was not easy to adapt to military life because Mr. Hackman was used to getting up whenever he wanted to and do anything he wanted to without anyone yelling in his face. He had to get up at 3 a.m. every morning to start his day of training. He served in North Carolina. He states it was hot, and they housed the whole 82nd Airborne Division and Delta Force. Even though he was finished with his basic training, he still had to run and stay in shape. They practiced drills and made sure they were prepared because at any given moment they had to be anywhere in the world in 18 hours or less. When he went to Korea, he said it was a long, boring ride because it was a 21-hour ride there. He slept half of the way there. 82nd Airborne Division went to Alaska to visit more troops. No one could get off the plane because it was snowing so bad. From Alaska, they flew to Hawaii. From Hawaii, they went to Japan. And from Japan, they flew to Korea. While he was in Korea, he got to do some important jobs.
One job he got to do was be a driver for a personnel carrier because he was a higher rank and had a good record. Once he ran over a shack with the Jeep. He had to go to jump school to learn all the techniques of jumping out of a plane. He spent 5 weeks there learning everything. He did practice jumps out of real planes. They also jumped out of 5-story buildings, and that's where they got most of the practice. Or even jumping out of anything, they had to do practice on the ground. They did 5 jumps before graduation. The people in charge don't tell you where you're dropping, when you're dropping out of a plane, and if you're dropping into fire range. That was the scariest thing Mr. Rick Hackman had to do. One scary moment jumping out of a plane was when he landed on his friend's parachute after it was open. He slid off the side of the parachute. 2 or 3 weeks later, Mr. Hackman jumped out of a plane and hit his head on the side. Mr. Rick Hackman had a total of 215 jumps in his training. They barely did any fighting. Most of the time was spent training. The only place he actually went into combat was when he went to Grenada. Mr. Hackman actually got injured while he was in Grenada. He got a small bullet shot into his right arm near his elbow. He never got a Purple Heart because it was too small of a wound and wasn't deserving of a Purple Heart. On his free time, he went dirt bike riding and hung out with his friends at North Carolina. He bought a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and drove a lot to Myrtle Beach because it wasn't that far away from where they were staying. He actually got a chance to go to England. He went through the British jump school there. He got his jump wings there.
Mr. Hackman is now happily married with 5 children. He still lives in Myerstown, Pennsylvania. He now has his own business as a welder. We finally wanted to thank Mr. Hackman for serving in the 82nd Airborne Division. Also thank him for all the time he took out of his schedule to help us do this Veterans History project.